Hell or heaven, or something in between? By reading mainstream media reports, you may get the impression that Muslim people in Xinjiang are oppressed and struggling. If you portray the region in a positive light, showing the realities, you will be branded a brainwashed propagandist for the Chinese government and the CPC. But that has not deterred some brave and independent voices to speak out the truth about what they saw with their own eyes on the ground. Among them is one German economist who has spent nearly 3 decades in China and has been going to Xinjiang, or has made many trips to Xinjiang since the 1990s. He made his latest trip last November. Based on his personal experiences, he has recently written 2 books about China to address the biggest questions Germans may have about this country. What has his experience told him about Xinjiang and the rest of the country? What will it take for people in Europe or in other parts of the West to open up their mind and say, maybe we have been wrong? I'm pleased to be joined in Beijing by Behrens, German transport economist and writer. He spent 27 years in China, as I said, during which period he visited Xinjiang many times. Uwe, welcome to The Point.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm very glad to talk with you and to raise my opinion to the audience.
Thank you. So what exactly brought you to China in the first place, and what brought you to Xinjiang?
The first idea to come to China was in 1990. I got an offer to take over one representation office in Beijing. It was planned for 3 years, finally 27 years were it in total. So I started with a small office for railway transportation between Europe and China, or vice versa. And this was the reason that I also participated on the opening of this new railway station between China and Kazakhstan, Alashankou-Tushpa, in the 90s. And this gave me the possibility to travel to Xinjiang several times, to the main places, Urumqi, but also to the railway station, Alashankou, to work together with the Xinjiang Railway at the time, to build up this transportation for container, but also to deal with a different ethnic dealer from Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, and so on.
Let's talk about Xinjiang, because that is one of the focal topics about this negativity that we're seeing on the international mainstream media. Do you see a gap, and how big is that gap, if you do, between what you read in the Western media about so-called concentration camps or forced labor, and with what you have seen and experienced on the ground in Xinjiang?
I would like to go a little bit back into history when I reply this question. When I was in the 90s, traveled, for example, to this Kazakhstan border. So I saw the countryside. I saw the very simple, very backwarded life. The girls got married in a very young age, got kids, couldn't go to the school, and it was a very simple life. When I came next time to Xinjiang in 2019, I saw already a complete different world. But between we have to see, since all this international development in Afghanistan, the rise of the Taliban, the fight against Islamic terrorism, led also to this, that the terrorism spread it to China. So we know all what happened in the beginning 2000s. How many terroristic attacks took place with 100,000 deaths? Only the big one were reported. The small events, the small attacks on a police station or on a school, this was not reported, but it took place. So all this we have to see. Then, of sure, China decided it has to be something done. And to my opinion, And this I can confirm after I saw it. To my opinion, China did or the Communist Party did a very smart approach. On one side, to suppress this terroristic movement, on the other side, to improve the living standard, the living condition for the people.
Well, now, however, some German companies have been put under pressure because they have operations in Xinjiang and they are accused of using forced labor, so-called, by the local Uyghur people, and otherwise they are facing sanctions. Now, these companies went to Xinjiang originally because of its geopolitical location, which is convenient for transporting goods from China, to Europe via Central Asia. But now they're under this pressure. How do you look at this situation?
Also, there I have to start a little bit earlier. As I said, Xinjiang was in the past a very backwarded area. To develop Xinjiang, it's necessary to build up an industry, to build up infrastructure, industry productivity. So the Chinese government got this policy that companies, big industry companies from the East Coast should have sub-companies also in this area to develop this area. This even VW did, or many, many Chinese and foreign companies opened branch companies in the Xinjiang province. There's two reasons. One, to develop the area, and on the other side, to train the people. How it can develop when not the Uyghur people get trained also. So sure, those people underwent certain training programs. They were invited to go to the mother companies on the East Coast, get trained there, and then back worked, for example, with VW. This is a normal procedure to develop an area, and it's also a necessary procedure. Otherwise, it would give a bigger gap between the local, let's say the Uyghurs, or the Kazakh, or the Tajik people, and the Han people. So it has to be developed together. All population has
these
to be
companies,
trained.
but these German companies are now pressed to leave their operations, to cut off their operations in Xinjiang because they are accused of using forced labor. How do you react to that? What's your reaction?
Yeah. This is actually ridiculous. Those workers working in the factory of VW, they are paid as to German standards. They have a tariff contract. They are normal employees as to German standards. And we have to know China adapted the labor law as to the German labor law. So sure, they adapted to the Chinese condition, but in general, this labor law is similar like this in Germany. So none of this worker in Xinjiang and with VW, I believe, is abused or is forced to work there. They work there because they have a good income, they have a good education, and have good working condition. So this forced labor is just a political item to blame China for something. We always have to see this in this entire global conflict, that China get blamed for human rights violation, which are actually not exist, at least not exist anymore since many years.
What about the genocide accusation? It gets even more ridiculous to me. And the cultural genocide accusations. What was your impression when you went there in 2023, talking to the local people, especially the local Uyghur people?
Yeah, I could not find any things that we can talk about this human rights violation or genocide approach. You know, I'm not an expert for people's right or people's law. But I just got a conversation with one very well-known German professor who also visited Xinjiang last year in May, Professor Perch, and he confirmed he could not see any indication of genocide, neither before, not today. But of sure, he said he can only refer to this, what he saw, and he as an expert said this is a political issue. This will be used to blame China, to dismiss this Chinese good reputation.
In terms of cultural heritage, you know, the ethnic minorities, their rights to be educated to their own language, to their own culture. What was your observation when you went there? Because I understood you talked to the local people like that. You know, you wanted to find out whether they learn their languages, whether they are, you know, whether their languages are alive and their culture is alive.
Okay, the best what I can say to this, I love to go to museum. And we went to the museum in Urumqi, in Kashgar, Tashkogan, and especially in this museum in Urumqi as well as in Kashgar, there were many student groups or school groups, kids between 10 and 12, 14 years. So, and I'm sure I always sneaked behind these students to see what they're interested for. But what impressed me at most, the teacher talked to the students in the local and the Uyghur language, as well in Han. She explained the history of Central Asia, the history of Xinjiang in different languages. I'm not aware why she switched always from one language to the other. Maybe some people some students didn't understand this Mandarin so good, but at least she always switched. And I asked her how the school goes on, whether the school is bilingual, and she confirmed, oh, sure, the school is bilingual, only it's very important that all, when they want to go to higher education, have to speak Mandarin. Otherwise, it's not possible to go to the big universities in, let's say, Shanghai, Beijing, or Hangzhou.
Because the courses taught there are in Mandarin.
Yeah, there's courses in the high school or in the university in Mandarin.
Yeah.
So they have to understand Mandarin and then have to be fluent in Mandarin. But what is for me important, it's not true that the local language, this Uyghur language, get suppressed. The students have in local language lesson, and you can see also everywhere on all the streets and all direction plates or the names of the villages, everywhere right. You see this local writing.
Recently, two German sinologists visited Xinjiang and wrote about it objectively on the Neue Zürcher Zeitung or the NZZ, and they got heavily criticized, a lot of pressure on people who speak positively on Xinjiang. What explains for that? Because clearly what's written about Xinjiang in the German media, for instance, or in the European media, does not reflect reality, because you have seen the difference, you have seen the reality. How do you react to the kind of pressure that political correctness is more important than facts, probably?
This is this problem. This both sinologist, who also joined this, Professor Patch, he joined this, both sinologists, they have been together there. All these reports were not published, or their reports were not published in the German media. They're only published in the Swiss newspaper, Neue Zürcher Zeitung. And there I was reading it. This was also the reason why I wanted to go by myself, and I can fully confirm what they said there.
Thank you so much, Uwe Behrens, a German transport economist and writer who has spent 27 years living in China. And thank you very much.